Well. Got me some orange juice here in my Alabama cup and some raw apple cider vinegar. That's good for acid reflux. You take your 2 tablespoons of raw apple cider vinegar about 30 minutes before you eat, and boy, I tell you, it helps out tremendously. Love my enemy? You must be a fool. That's what I used to say. As a matter of fact, if anything, I want something bad to happen to my enemies. Jesus may have thought that an eye for eye and a tooth for a tooth was in the past, but not me. I wanted something bad to come to my enemies. You did me wrong, I'm going to get you back. And if I didn't get you back, somebody will, or something would. And when it does, I celebrate. That was the old me, though. That was the old attitude I had. The Bible is very clear when it comes to loving our enemies. And you know what? It's the hardest thing in the world to do, to love your enemy, to love people who are out to get you, who are out to hurt you, or people who intentionally just break your heart. It's hard to do that, but we're commanded to do it. We're not commanded to get revenge upon people who do us wrong. In Matthew chapter 5, beginning with verse number 43, Jesus is making a comparison between the old law and the way it used to be under the 10 Commandments, under the law of Moses, and the way it is now under the New Testament, the new law, the law of Christ. And in verse 43, he says, you've heard that it had been said in the old time, love your neighbor, but hate your enemy. Jesus said, that's what y'all used to say. Love your neighbor, hate your enemy. But I say to you, verse 44, love your enemies. How do you love them? Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you. What is our response to our enemies? 3 things in this verse. Bless them, do good to them, and pray for them. Bless, do good, and pray for them. You may be saying, well, I don't want to do that. Well, the next verse says, so that you may be sons of your Father. If you refuse to bless your enemies and do good to your enemies and pray for your enemies, regardless of what they do to you, then don't consider yourself a son of God. Don't consider yourself a Christian. Okay? Because we're commanded to do this. We're commanded to stay away from that attitude that says, I want revenge. We're commanded to stay away from that attitude that says, I want to get them back. We're commanded to stay away from that. In Romans chapter 12, Paul deals with the entire scenario of somebody doing something to you and you wanting to get revenge. And so in Romans chapter 12, in verse number 17, Paul says, repay no one evil for evil, but rather give place to wrath. It is written, vengeance is mine, said the Lord, I will repay. You see, when you take it upon yourself to get somebody back, you're basically saying, God, I want to do your job for you because you're too slow. Or, God, I want to do your job for you because you're not doing it the way I want you to do it. So I'm going to step in and help you out a little bit, Lord. Paul said, no, don't do that. Don't repay evil for evil. You get out of the way and you let God step in and work. The next verse he says, and if it be possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. You know what that means? That verse simply means you can't control what everybody else does, but you can control what you do. No, you can't control how people treat you, but you can control your response. And your response is the only thing that you're accountable for. You're not accountable for how someone else acts. You're not accountable for what someone else does to you, but you are accountable for how you respond to them. So how do you do it? Paul says in verse number 20, if your enemy is hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them something to drink. Verse number 21, overcome evil by doing good. Paul said, you know what? You can't change how people are, but you can change how you respond. You don't have to have an emotional connection with people who do you wrong, but you can always do good to those people. You can always bless those people. You can always pray for those people. And you know what? Doing good, praying for those people, blessing those people could be the key to turning them around. You never know. But you will never know unless you try. Just a little something to think about. Peace out.